All right, it's 10 o'clock Mountain Time, 9 o'clock Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. And yeah, so I have just come back from the Adobe for Education Summit. An Adobe featured education live streamer, and I've switched my times up. So I was doing, for a lot of the summer, streams in the morning where I am, and I've kind of switched it to the evening, but I'm not really sure what I'm going to do moving forward. So, you know, I took my schedule down. I have a schedule of streams that I usually do. So if you want to know what's going on, you can always go to my Twitter and see what's announced there. Otherwise, tonight we're going to do some stuff inside of Adobe Substance 3D Stager. So a couple months ago I did sort of the same project inside of Adobe Dimension, but Adobe Dimension, of course, has been, you know, sort of brushed aside a bit for Adobe's new suite of Substance 3D apps. And we're going to look at Stager tonight. So Stager is basically Dimension with a bunch of additional stuff added to it. So there are some major differences between Stager and Dimension. I'm going to go with Stager since this is the application that they are, you know, dedicated to at this point. You know, they say they're still supporting Stager, or Dimension rather, but you know, if they're not going to be making major updates to Dimension, then I'm not going to waste my time with Dimension. So here we are inside of Adobe Substance 3D Stager. And you can see here, anybody who's familiar with Dimension, it's going to look a lot familiar. So you've got your different shapes and your primitives and your models and things like this on the side, although there are a number of additional ones inside of Stager. You've got your materials as well. So basic materials and materials. Inside of Dimension, it used to be split up from Adobe materials and Substance 3D materials. So of course, now that we're dealing with only Substance 3D and not Adobe per se, we've got all of these materials here that are just labeled materials. We have our lights, and these are expanded as well. And then we have a greatly expanded number of images, so both background images and things that are kind of like, you know, grunge stone and folds and things like that. So what we want to do tonight is actually have a look at how to do some sort of like product mock-ups inside of Stager. And again, you can do the same sort of thing inside of Dimension. I'm doing Stager just because it is the, you know, it's sort of taken precedence over Dimension. Even though they do basically the same sort of thing. Yeah. So let's see how things are looking here. My stream quality is looking really good, so that's great. Everybody who's here tonight, who's joining live, let me know how things are going, how things are doing on your side of things, what you're working on, and so forth, what you might want to see. And we're going to get going with this. So the first thing I'm going to do is add in some kind of a model. I'm going to collapse the basic shapes and go straight to the models because I do want to look for specific things. A lot of my students, they look to do things with, you know, products that are familiar to them. So things that people use all the time, whether it's like sunscreen or, you know, cans of beer or soda or something like that. I think we're going to go with a can. And you can see here we've got coffee with lid, we've got drink cartons, juice boxes, all sorts of different models. I'm going to go with can wet. So can wet is going to be like an aluminum can, but it's going to have little droplets of condensation on the side, which can be nice. And if you just click on one of these models, it'll add it to the very center of your composition here. So you can see immediately it's selected, And inside of our scene panel here, we have Can Wet. This is shown as a folder or a group. And we can expand that to see the different models individually that make up this entire group. So here is the can. Here are the droplets. And here up top is the little pull tab. So you can actually do specific things to something like the pull tab here. So let's go ahead and start adding some materials to this. That's kind of the first thing. And I'm going to go with my can. I'm going to select that can model here and switch over to my materials. So here we have things like metal polished, metal brushed. Let's go ahead and choose, I don't know, metal polished. See how that looks. I don't know if it's coming up on my audio feed here, but I do have quite a bit of fan noise coming from my MacBook, which isn't surprising. But yeah, quite a bit of noise. Metal polish. I wonder if they have anything chrome. You can always search. So maybe I'll look for chrome here. No chrome. Aluminum. Aluminum. Yeah, not seeing that either. So, metal. Yeah, here we go. So what are we using here? We've got metal polished. It looks a little weird. So, you know, inside of Dimension, what you had was this little render preview over here. I believe that's been replaced by this ray tracing feature. So if I turn that on, let's see how that kind of looks. And you can actually change the settings here too, your different render settings. So if I turn this on, we can see that you can limit the CPU threads, samples, noise level, max time, denoise. Here's what I'm looking for down here, resolution. So you can do full, half, quarter. I'm going to set it to quarter because that means it's going to render very, very quickly for me. But we could also choose a half because that kind of looks like garbage. Yeah, it's not looking the best. Let's zoom in here. So we got our camera tools here, and these are the same tools that we have in Dimension. Orbit, pan, and dolly. So I'm going to kind of dolly in here. And let's pan up a bit until we've got our can front and center. Yeah. So that looks okay. I mean, my environment, we've got an environment light that goes with this. Let's actually go to our lights here. I'm going to turn off my render settings and actually turn off the ray tracing as well. Let's go to our lights. And we've got our physical lights, environment stages, environmental lights. So if I apply one of these, that's going to change exactly how things are reflected off the can and so forth, right? See, I want something really kind of ambient. Studio soft light. Ooh, that's mad. I don't want that. Let's try area. Yeah, I am not digging all these lights that I've added. My environmental light here. We've got our intensity. Let's take that down a little bit. And we'll just go with it. Alright. So there are definitely a lot more options inside of Stager than we had in Dimension. But what I want to do now is actually go through, and actually let's go ahead and actually hop over to Adobe Illustrator right now. First, I'm going to do a Command or Control S and save this just in case anything happens. I have had Stager crash on me, and actually Stager crashed earlier today when I was bringing it up just to like start something, and it asked me to report it to Adobe, which I did, and they actually got back to me right away with the log information and everything. They asked me for more information, which I don't have, so sorry guys. You're not getting more information just yet. But if it does crash again, I'll be sure to let you know. Alright. Let's see how everything's doing. Oh, we got a good amount of people in the room right now, so that's cool. So, hey, hope everybody's doing well. Let me know in the chat what you're up to. Once again, as I pop over to Adobe Illustrator. So inside of Illustrator, I've just got a blank artboard here. And what we're going to do is pull in some assets. So I've got the Adobe Creative Educator badge here that I'm pulling in. There it is. And this is the level 2 badge for the ACE. So let's make sure to place that in our composition like that. And maybe what I'll do is go through and let's see here. Maybe use the gradient tool. To just kind of create some textures here. Let's place a big rectangle on the stage. And I don't want to stroke, so let's disable that. And for the fill, we do have some gradients in here. Fading sky, that might be nice. Yeah. So we got fading sky, and let's turn on our gradient tool again so that we can make some adjustments to exactly what we have here. And actually, I want to make some adjustments in terms of rotation. Let's get that rotation there. So it's just straight up and down. Yeah. Cool. And in terms of my stacking, I want this rectangle to be below the badge, so the badge stands out really nice. There we go. So pretty simple. We're just creating a little image so that we're going through and we're going to apply this to our can, right? So this is going to be Adobe Creative Educator. I don't know what it would be called, like juice, soda, something. Let's call it juice. So I'm just going to put the word juice in there, and then we're going to go through and choose a font. I'm going to filter by my activated fonts from Adobe Fonts and find one that's going to work. Maybe this one right here. This is Ethnocentric RG Regular. I do want it to be quite a bit bigger though, so let's make it larger and center that guy. Paragraph settings, and change the kerning a little bit. Oops. Hey guy. Okay. He's going real slow. That's okay. Hello. So, gosh, I always worry that I mispronounce people's names that come into the streams here. So, Vivi, what am I doing? I'm making a label that I'm going to apply to this can that I'm working with inside of Adobe Substance 3D Stager as part of a sort of product rendering. And I'm using Illustrator to do that. So welcome, Vivi. Bentamir, hello, how are you? Giorgio, good morning. 12:15. Yeah, it's 12:15 Eastern time. It's 10:16 at this point. Mountain time where I am. So I'm outside of Denver, Boulder, that area in Colorado. And it's like 9:16 Pacific time. So I'm going to change the color on this too. Something a little more blue. Not super pleased with any of these. That might be okay. Let's go with that one. All right. So that's all I want to do in Illustrator, right? I just want to make like this nice wraparound here inside of there. Photoshop, no, this is Illustrator right here, but we're done with Illustrator. You could absolutely do this in Photoshop too. Oh, 12:15 is the time in China. Nice. So that must be 12:15 in the afternoon then, right? 6:16 in the Czech Republic. Is that right? AM. Up early. Actually, I usually get up around 5:30 or 6 in the morning myself. So, all right. So let's see here. So I want to apply this to my actual can itself. So I'm going to choose inside of my can wet group here. I'm going to choose the model, the 3D model that actually makes up the can itself, right? So let's see here. Oh gosh, it's really dark. Well, I mean, I suppose it would be dark. It's almost 11 here, almost 10:30. Yeah, I'm just used to being on here in the daytime now. It's been so long since I did a nighttime stream. So can wet can is going to have a decal. So let's see how this differs from, yeah, here we go. So here's our quick actions, place image on model. So if I click this, it's going to prompt me to locate an image. And I want to go into my downloads because that's where my Adobe Illustrator file is. Right here, label.ai. I'm going to open that up. So it's going to go through and load up that Illustrator file, and I'll be able to place it as a decal. See right here, graphic. Place it on my model and change how it's actually placed on there. So I don't know what's going on with my lights. Let's actually remove both of these since we're not even using them. We'll change our environmental light to something different. Oh gosh. Wow, so that loaded up. Interesting. Okay, so this is way different from Dimension. Environment stages and environment lights. So environment stages, you can see my can is way down there. I'm going to actually undo this with Command or Control Z. This is not what I meant to do. I wanted environmental lights. So let's do a 3-point. See how that looks. Yeah, I don't know. So this is actually my first time working inside of Stager, because I was working with Dimension before this. However, as we know, that's interesting. I don't know why it's not showing up. It should be. Oh, there it goes. Hey, that was odd. Well, you know, Stager is a new product, right? So there we go, though. There's Adobe Creative Educator Level 2 Juice. So we've got that going on for us. And if we turn on our ray tracing again, it should show up a little nicer. Yeah. So right now, I'm going to toggle that back off. Right now, because we have these wet droplets here, it really just kind of looks like garbage when we're looking at this, right? So if I dolly in, we can see these droplets they look like marshmallow, right? Uh-oh. So Behance is telling me that I have a poor network connection, which is not true. Behance does this all the time. I don't know why, but it does. What we need to do, though, is to select these droplets. And as far as I can tell, this works exactly the same as Dimension. And find some kind of a liquid to place on these droplets. Because right now they're just this generic kind of material that's like a white plastic. It's not what we're looking for at all. Here we go. So we probably want to find water. Here's water right here. If I click on that, it should go ahead and apply that. There we go. And I like to turn on my ray tracing whenever I change anything like that, so I can see exactly how it's going to actually look. Let's deselect that. Yeah, so that's going to look a lot better, right? It doesn't look all freaky anymore. So something I noticed here, and again, let's dolly back out. Woo! So something I noticed is that we have a couple new tools over here. And this is one of the new tools when I was playing this morning that kind of crashed Stager on me. And that's this little tool here, the box tool. You can also draw spheres and cylinders and things like that by just kind of freehand clicking and then clicking somewhere else. That actually crashed Stager on me, so I don't want to do that. But right underneath here, we actually have a tool that's an environmental lighting tool, which is pretty neat. So let's kind of see how this works. So I'm going to click and drag around, and you can see we're changing the actual environmental lighting inside of our situation here. And I'm trying to make it go way up, but it doesn't look like it wants to go that much farther up, which is kind of like, okay, environmental lighting, that's fine. Let's see here. Yeah, so we have a backlight, a fill light, a key light, and we can toggle these different individual lights on and off if we need to. Here's my environmental light. Right on. And what do we have here? So aim light at point. That's pretty cool. So again, this is my first time actually trying to do something inside of Stager. I'm used to Dimension, not used to Stager quite yet. So getting used to it. Oh, you can turn hotspots on and off. It's pretty cool. Yeah, so Stager does have definitely a bit of additional tools and features from what we saw inside of Dimension, you know. Let's see here. So what else do I want to do to this? I want to put some other stuff in here. I mean, we could put a background image for sure. So let's go in here and have a look at what we have. Kitchen. Office lounge. Either one of these might work out pretty good. Let's do office lounge. And let's hit OK. So this is something that was inside of Dimension as well. The ability to match the image. So when you set a background image, setting the camera, creating lights, matching the camera perspective, those are all good things to do. It uses the AI to do that. And you can see that sets up our lights for us, so it looks a lot better. So what we can do, of course, is like move our can around now. So if I shift this can over here, I can place it on the table. Although, it looks quite massive right now. That's not a life-size can. So let's go ahead and hold down Shift and scale this down to a size that looks proper. And let's also go through and let's see here. Just shift it ever so slightly. There we go. Looks a little better. Yeah. So I'm saving every once in a while just because, you know, I am so unfamiliar with this, and I did have a crash earlier today, so I don't want that to happen again. But you can see it's done a pretty good job at matching the light. If you look right here, though, it's taking the top of the can and also the little pull tab, and it is it's doing something really weird with it. It's rendering it as this weird like shadow thing here, which isn't all that cool. It's really strange, but whatever. I mean, that's what you can expect with a new product, I suppose, right? So let's go ahead and select the pull tab here. And I wonder if we make a change to anything here with the pull tab materials, if it's going to change anything with this weird shadow. I guess not. It's not really doing anything. Well, that's how it is, I suppose. So I'm going to make a couple other cans here. And right now they're all kind of on top of each other, but we can go through, and you can see as I move this, the little weird shadow that we've got going on is actually moving as well, which is strange. But we've got these 3 different cans. Now, something cool that you can do inside of Stager, and you can see it right here, is to work with collision. So inside of Dimension, you would have to be very careful about how to place things. But we have collision now inside of Stager. So if I click on each of these and activate collision, and then try to move these things around, you can see they kind of move and collide with one another. And I can actually go through and, like if I rotate this down, and yeah, let's see here. I'm gonna have to actually use the gizmo to get this up out of there. Right, there we go. Now it's collided with the surface. I can shift that over there. And let's put this one towards the back of the table more. So there we go. One of them's fallen over, and the other 2 are doing their thing over here, right? Actually, let's move this one over here so you can actually see the full label on that fellow over there. And let's go for a ray tracing. See how it looks for just a test render here. Hello. So you can see that looks so much better with the ray tracing on than it does otherwise. When you're not using the ray tracing, it looks kind of like plastic. You know, no matter what type of stuff you got on there, it doesn't look all that great. But with ray tracing on, I mean, it looks fairly realistic. If I fit canvas here, actually, let's turn off in our environment. We can disable the should be able to disable the ground plane, the grid that we see there. Wow, look at all these lights it added. That's pretty crazy. Yeah, but that looks pretty cool. You can see it's casting the shadows appropriately and everything. We've got our Adobe Creative Educator Level 2 juice going on here. Just a little weird, but that's okay. Let's actually change the... what do I need to do that? Go ahead and save that again. Let's turn off ray tracing for now. Yeah, it's weird. Like, it seems to see like this weird like can just like right in the center here. That's just sort of like, we can see the top of the can. It's very odd. But when we actually turn it on to ray tracing, it seems to work out just fine. So I guess I won't worry about it that much. So there we have those. Let's see if there's anything else we want to bring in here. Let's go to our models once again. And well, there's a desk lamp. That's kind of nice. Coffee maker's cool. Felt tip pen. Let's add a pen here. So I clicked on the pen to add it. Let's turn on collision with our pen. And what we're gonna do is move the pen onto the table here. We can place it like so. Move it up a bit, scale it down. And go to our materials. So a pen be kind of like plastic, usually. Soft plastic. This one right here, it's a darker, let's see how that looks. Of course it's hard to see because I'm not zoomed in. It looks like Stager has stalled on me a little bit, unfortunately. There we go. Yeah. So where is our pen? There it is. Felt tip pen. And inside of here we have the tip mesh, the pen mesh, the cap mesh. So there's a couple different things to have. And I wish I could use my trackpad on my MacBook to zoom in and out, but unfortunately it looks like Stager does not have that capability. So here's my pen. Let's go ahead and change the cap to a hard plastic cap. So it's a little bit different. We've got the soft plastic and the hard plastic. And of course, if we turn on our ray tracing, man, this thing is making my MacBook struggle. What is going on with that? It made it like a ghost pencil. And its shadow's way over here. So that's very odd. Let's go ahead and click this down. So this is one of those quick actions you can use. Move to ground. Place it right there. And then if I shift that over here, and we turn on ray tracing again. Yeah, it's a bit better. Not perfect though at all. We need this to rotate around like that. And wow. Let's go ahead and change that pen mesh to a hard plastic as well. There we go. That looks a little better. Well, it looks a lot better actually. So there we go. There's our little pen. Yeah, I mean, I'm really impressed coming from Dimension with sort of like how realistic these bits and pieces are when compared to Dimension inside of Stager. It's pretty nice. I do think Dimension is a bit easier to work with just because it has fewer options. But, you know, it's out of my hands what we do with this stuff. So, I don't know, it's pretty cool though. Let's go ahead and actually go and let's render this. So I'm gonna go to render. If Stager will let me render. There we go. All right, render settings. So this is a bit different from what we used to see inside of Dimension. So I've got ray tracing on, that's great. Max CPU threads, I don't care how many it uses, I'll keep it at 0. We've got some presets here, medium, draft, high, ultra. Full resolution. We're gonna do 300 pixels per inch because what if we wanted to print this, right? Why is it set to 72? That's crazy. And let's see here. Export as a Photoshop document. It's gonna try to pop it on my desktop. That's not what I want though. I want to put it in my downloads. And let's go ahead and render this guy. So here it goes. And you can see here, it's popped up a little helpful thing. It's like learn while rendering. And so they know it's going to take a while to render. And that's usually the toughest thing with this stuff, right? Is waiting for it to render. I'm going to click OK here. That's fine. Yeah. So interesting. I mean, you know, as my first sort of foray into Stager from using Dimension for a couple of years, you know, it's different for sure. Oh, it says it's only going to take like 7 minutes. That's pretty good. Yeah, it's looking really nice though. So we'll see how it looks inside of Photoshop when we finish rendering this guy. It'll create that Photoshop document for us. We could just open that right up. We can remove the background even, play with the different layers. So why is this useful, right? Why would you want to do some kind of like product concept rendering like this? You'd want to use it inside of a bigger project probably. So if you take the rendering, you could place this inside of an Illustrator document instead of a Photoshop document once it's rendered, and add in your copy text, add in your headline, that sort of thing. You could bring it into Adobe After Effects and be able to do sort of like, you know, a pan upwards, downwards, zoom in, something of that nature, for your overall concept to actually show what like the product would look like. And you can bring in any sort of 3D models. So if you had 3D models of, you know, some other product, like maybe you're doing a concept around, I don't know. I'm looking around trying to see if there's like anything around my desk here that you could possibly want to do a concept around. Like, I don't know. I mean, this is almost the same, right? I've got this Peloton branded water bottle here. And it's actually a Yeti brand, but it's marked Peloton. So if you wanted to put your own, you know, little logo on there, something like that, you could do that. If you had, I've got some duct tape over there. If you wanted to, if you had a concept for duct tape, of course you could find a duct tape model, right? But yeah, here you could find like a Yeti model of water bottle, and you could bring that in and use that, because I don't think they have specifically like a Yeti or a duct tape 3D model that comes bundled with dimension. So you could always do that. Bring it in, make it your own. And you can see here in the render too, like that Illustrator document, I have that nice kind of like blue fade to it, right? So here's the Illustrator document again that I'm using as a label. So that blue fade actually comes across really pretty nicely against the metal of the can, as we see there. And I could do something else too with the pen. I could put the sort of branding aspects on the pen also, if I desired. It says we got 4 minutes left waiting for this thing to render. Yeah. And you don't have to necessarily, you know, render your objects like this against a sort of image, a photorealistic background. You could always do it against something else, because inside of the Photoshop document that it produces, you can always remove the background. So that's perfect for integrating into other pieces of software. You just disable that background image and place it on a poster, or, you know, again, in some sort of like After Effects or Premiere Pro project, and it'll work out just fine. And we're just waiting for it to render. 2 minutes left, so not bad. I can talk for 2 minutes. But yeah, anybody who's joined recently, let me know how you're doing in the chat. I always like to interact with people in the chat. Yeah, King says show more. And unfortunately, I can't show anything while it's rendering, because everything kind of locks up while the render happens. But once it is finished rendering, we can always open it up inside of Photoshop and see what it actually renders. So while this is happening, I'll mention this is a so I'm an Adobe Education leader, and this is a featured educator Behance live stream And there are a number of us who do live streams every week on the Adobe Education team. So I am going to share a couple things here. There we go. So it's my web browser, obviously. And I'm going to post this link in the chat if you all want to check it out while this is rendering. So these are all the Adobe Education leaders who do live streams. And if you look down here, mine's kind of so you know, this is reflective right here. Wednesday is 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know, it's really hard to schedule these things. And is this software stable? I don't know, it crashed earlier today on me. So it's been stable tonight. Earlier today it wasn't very stable. But to be fair, Dimension took a while to render things too, right? So it's as stable as, you know, this is my first time actually using it for a project. So Stager is very new, though it is very related to Dimension as well. So, you know, I don't know. We'll see how stable it is as we go through and use it. But I'm sure, like any software, it will only get more stable as we progress, right? So yeah, so here you can follow Kenneth, you can follow Hannah, and I think Hannah streamed yesterday. She does a lot of illustration and things like that. Here's myself. So yeah, it says 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. I'm thinking about doing just like a variable kind of thing and just streaming whenever the hell I want. So this hasn't been updated to reflect that yet, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. You can also hit me on LinkedIn Learning or Amazon for buy books and things like that. Matthias is great. He streams from the Netherlands. Andrew is on hiatus, but he has some really neat streams during the day. Georgina has been around. I think she's been moving across different continents the past couple of weeks, so she'll probably be back fairly soon. She was located in Jordan. I think she's in the UK now. I'm not quite sure. There's Craig, and he's from Australia. So yeah, check that out. And you know, this gets updated whenever we change things around. Like I mentioned, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I've taken a couple of weeks off of live streaming just because I've done, I did How to Teach, which is a workshop. I did an Animate workshop for How to Teach. It was over 2 days, 2 weeks ago. And last week, I was involved in the Adobe for Education Summit. So that took up my time for the past 2 weeks, so I didn't do any live streams. So I used to live stream during the day. I switched it to nighttime, but there's things I like about nighttime and there's things I don't like about it. And I don't know, at this point, I'm just thinking, just do it variable. I'll pop on whenever I feel like it and just do live streams when it's gonna work for me, you know? So I don't know. Oh, and I can see the PSD coming down, and there it is. Perfect. Oh, Stager wants to send me notifications. That's cute, Adobe. Let's get rid of that. All right, so here we have our little Stager document here. So let's go ahead and choose Edit in Photoshop. So this created a PSD document, and we can find that in my downloads here where I saved it. Stager-camera.psd. Let's go ahead and open that up. We can edit it straight from, I almost said Dimension, straight from Stager. And you know, it's funny because, like, you know, I got into the world of Adobe with Flash and Flash Professional and Flash Player and Adobe Air and all that stuff. It was great stuff. But I remember when Adobe switched it from, they rebranded Flash Professional to Adobe Animate, right? So this is kind of the same sort of thing where they rebranded Dimension to Stager, and they're improving it. So interesting how things kind of all work like that, right? So yeah, so if you wanted to go ahead and integrate this into something else, you want to get rid of the background, it's easy enough to just kill that background, right? So so this is Photoshop, obviously. I can take that completely out of there, and I can do whatever the heck I want with it, right? If I want to place this in some other environment, the only problem is the reflections on the cans, because the cans are very reflective, are still reflective of the environment that they're in, right? But that's the only real difference. You could completely render this with a neutral background environment and neutral lighting, and you could integrate the rendered 3D models like this inside of anything that you wanted to, right? And of course, if you didn't want this pen, you could always be like, hey, I don't want that pen anymore. So since we're inside of Photoshop, let's create a little selection with our lasso tool here, and we'll just exclude the pen and place a mask on there, and there we go. It's gone. No more little pen. So yeah, we can also go through here, and some quick tips around Photoshop, huh? If you are in Photoshop and you want to get rid of all this dead space, right? So all we want are the cans, right? What we can do is, if you click off of all the different layers so that you have the document properties exposed, you can always go through here, and inside of quick actions you have a trim quick action. What that's going to do is it's going to trim off the transparent pixels from whatever you choose. So by default, it's going to do it from all four corners. So top, bottom, left, and right. Hit OK there. Perfect. There we go. Now we have our cans that we can go through and, you know, integrate into something else, like a poster, like a video, and so forth. And we've got our project concept ready to go, and it looks great, you know. So one thing too that would make this look even better, if I go back to Stager, and this goes with Dimension as well. When you actually create your document, notice here we're 1920 by 1440, but these are kind of small, you know. Let's go ahead and add in a different background inside of Stager, and we're just going to make it very generic, right? So, I don't know, gradient linear 1. That sounds pretty darn generic, doesn't it? There we go. So inside of gradient linear 1, we can go ahead and actually dolly this in a bit, and let's get rid of this stupid pen. I don't know why I added that in there, just to play with something else, but we can remove that. And you know, you can use your orbit tool to sort of pan around wherever you want. So if you want a different perspective on this stuff, but that's going to give you a much nicer render. Let's turn ray tracing off, actually. So as we go through here and we look at how this render is going to look, that'll give you a better render when you go through. If you go through and actually, you know, either make your models bigger or even increase the size of your stage here. So if we look, the properties for our object here, the width is 1920, the height is 1440. I mean, if I make this 3000 pixels by 2200 pixels, you can, when you render this, it's going to render out all those extra pixels, right? So when you're inside of Photoshop, you know, you're going to have that many more pixels to mess with. So that is a really good tip when you're dealing with either Dimension or Stager, for going through. Yeah, exactly like Dimension, King. Yep. And this is something I never understood with Dimension, and I don't really understand with Stager either why they haven't like upped this up quite a bit, since they're focusing more and more on the you know, the supposed quality of this stuff, is why they don't make the default a higher resolution, you know. But look at that, that's really cool. I've tried a number of different you know, 3D programs over the years, but nothing has been as simple, I have to say. You know, I criticize Adobe quite a bit for certain missteps, things of that nature, right? But I really do appreciate that they're getting into 3D more and more, getting into materials, models, things like this. I mean, this is great to have access to this sort of stuff, these tools. So if I were to go through and render this now, you know, it would be such a higher resolution render from what I had before. And of course, we could bump this up to 6,000 pixels wide if we wanted to. Get the best render possible for what we're trying to do. I've noticed they've also put this little speed gauge here. So this is a performance monitor where it shows you what your active GPU is. I'm on a MacBook Pro 16-inch 2019. So pre-COVID. And yeah, it's got a AMD Radeon Pro 5300. You can see the different specs on here, the frame rate, the update rate, material count, mesh memory. I don't know what half of this stuff is. You know, I'm not a 3D guy at all, but I can appreciate it. So, and I like to work with it, at least in products like Dimension and like Stager. So, you know, Substance 3D comes with a lot of additional stuff. There's like 3 or 4 other like full products that come with this particular subsuite. Something that's I think is an injustice is that Stager does not come as part of Creative Cloud itself. So if you have Creative Cloud, you do have access to Dimension, which is great, but again, they're not really updating Dimension at all. However, you do have access to Dimension right now until they make decisions otherwise, you know. In terms of Stager, yeah, it's an injustice, because if they take Dimension away, then they should replace it with Stager, especially since Stager is basically Dimension Plus, right? So I do think it is something that the people who are in charge of these decisions at Adobe need to really think about. The perceptions around it could be troublesome for them. They're troublesome for me. I think in terms of justice, you need to, you know, give people access to Stager if you take Dimension away, you know? So, yeah, and they know this. I've told them this. Whether they do anything based on my opinion, they probably won't. But if they hear it enough from other people, then who knows, you know? But, yeah, anyhow, I'm going to do another render based on this one, actually, because I really do like... what's going on here? I really do like the the view here, and I think it's a lot nicer. So let's choose to render this one as well. Call this one Stager 2. That's odd. Oh well. Anyway. Like I said. Oh, this is updating. Okay. I guess it's just too big for the screen. And too much for my MacBook to keep up with, unfortunately. Cool, cool. So, anybody have experience with any of the Substance 3D stuff yet? I'm not going to wait for this whole thing to render once again. I'm going to probably end the stream before that happens. But in closing, I'm just curious if anybody else has had exposure, personal touch points with this stuff. Let me know in the chat. Yeah, I can't do anything right now. It's just rendering. So yeah, I mean, I think this technology is great, especially for my students. So I teach at the University of Colorado Boulder. And I teach primarily in the creative advertising track. And if they're looking at creating stuff, concepts, and things like that, specifically for creative advertising, Dimension is wonderful. Stager is wonderful for them. So I am fully behind the software, right? I'm fully behind what Adobe's doing with 3D. And with, you know, product concepting and packaging and so forth. Despite what my reservations about how they've handled Dimension versus Stager and things like that. Man, look at that. That's just so good. I probably should have done this on my Windows machine. It would have done the 3D a bit better. Even though my Windows machine is like 6 years old and spec-wise like way underpowered compared to my MacBook Pro, I kind of know that the Windows machine would do a better job. That's just kind of how things work. I don't know. I know with the M1 stuff, Apple's kind of getting on top of that, right? So performance with the Intel stuff on MacBooks isn't that great. M1 looks to fix that, and M2 or M1X or whatever the heck comes next. But until that happens, right, we have to deal. You know what's funny? I used to be so anti-Apple anything. You know, I was all aboard Android. Windows, I tolerated. But at this point, like, I mean, I've got a Windows machine still that I do stuff with. I record most of my stuff for lynda.com, LinkedIn Learning, on Windows. But, you know, I recently, like, finally switched to an iPhone after, like, gosh, probably like 15 years of Android devices. And, you know, even before that, I've got my iPad Pro here with my Apple Pencil and stuff like that. But gosh, it's so disappointing, the performance of a MacBook Pro when it comes to a lot of pieces of software. I mean, even something like Photoshop or Animate, you know, some basic like old time software, it runs so much better on my old Windows machine than it does on my fairly new MacBook Pro. And this thing's loaded up with like 32 gigs of RAM and everything, you know? It's just, I don't know. I probably shouldn't complain about it, but, you know, what are you going to do? Anyhow, looks like we have 30 minutes left on this particular render, and I'm not going to put everybody through that, and I'm not going to put myself through that either. So, in that case, wow, we have a lot of people watching right now. So, hey everybody. Thanks for coming. And that's interesting. Let's do a refresh on here. Oops. All right, now all is good. I was checking out some stuff in the back here. All right, well, I am going to stop the stream because now we have 38 minutes left on this render. So of course, you know, we upped the resolution of our image, right, inside of Stager. Obviously, it's going to take longer to render a higher resolution image. So it's gone from like 5 minutes to 40 minutes. But we're going to have such a better product when it all is said and done. So, all right. So, yeah, I don't know when I'm streaming next. I wish I did. But I'll probably tweet it out. I had a schedule up, but I took it down because, you know, I don't know what the support is anymore for us. So unfortunately. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed me rendering these fabulous cans. And I hope you all have a good week. I'm going to end the stream and move on to other things. So, see you all later, perhaps, or, you know, perhaps not. So, good evening, all.